West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
Last night, we learned from the New York Times that the National Archives recovered more than 150 classified documents from Trump's Florida home in January, which were squirreled away in 15 boxes of documents. We also learned that Trump personally went through those documents before he turned them over. In a bid to somehow help the former president, Trump right-wing media ally John Solomon late last night published a letter from the National Archives to one of Trump's lawyers. It's dated May 10th. Now, Solomon hyped this letter as evidence that somehow Biden had sicked the FBI on Trump. But as it turns out, Solomon was really sort of shooting himself, or rather Donald Trump, in the foot. For starters, this May letter from the National Archives confirms the New York Times reporting that over 100 documents retrieved by the government in January from Mar-a-Lago, that they were marked classified. The National Archivist details that specifically it was over 700 pages of classified information just hanging out at Mar-a-Lago. Included in some of these were documents with some of the very highest levels of classification, including special access program materials, which even if you have top security clearance, you still need additional clearance to see that kind of document. The letter, again, the letter somehow meant to exonerate Trump and implicate Biden. It also confirms that Trump and his crew had been dragging their feet for weeks, asserting bogus claims of executive privilege in an attempt to delay the seized documents from being handed over to the Justice Department. So while the archives retrieved the boxes of documents in January, the FBI and the DOJ didn't get access to the contents of those boxes until the month of May. Donald Trump clearly has a different definition of cooperation than most of us do. But that is not all. In June, when the Justice Department officials went to Mar-a-Lago to ask Donald Trump, hey, are there any more classified documents lying around? Trump's former CrossFit lawyer reportedly signed a statement saying that Trump had handed over all those documents. She signed a statement affirming, yes, that is it. Nothing else to see here, folks. But even after that June visit, even after Trump's attorney swore there were no more classified documents in Mar-a-Lago, double pinky swear, the Justice Department wasn't convinced. So on August 8th, the FBI executed a search warrant where they found, you guessed it, more documents at Mar-a-Lago marked top secret. The New York Times reported late last night that, in fact, federal agents in total have now retrieved over 300 classified documents, which is hundreds and hundreds of pages of classified material from Mar-a-Lago. That record of obfuscation and foot dragging and false statements is apparently Donald Trump's definition of complete cooperation. And we have breaking news tonight about that supposed cooperation. The Washington Post reports what happened when archives first received the documents in January. Quote, When archives employees began opening up and sifting through the material, they noticed an immediate problem. The boxes arrived without any kind of logs or inventories to describe their content, according to a person familiar with the recovery. Instead, they contained a hodgepodge of documents, including some that didn't even come from Trump's time in the White House. But some of the White House records had obvious markings indicating they were classified. Now, NBC News has not yet confirmed this reporting. The Washington Post report continues to chronicle how the FBI conducted its investigation and just precisely how involved Donald Trump was personally with overseeing the documents. Quote, as the fight with the archives came to an uneasy conclusion, the FBI proceeded with interviews with others in Trump's orbit, including valets and former White House staffers. Agents were told that Trump was a pack rat who had been personally overseeing his collection of White House records since even before leaving Washington and had been reluctant to return anything. The FBI became increasingly convinced that the former president continued to hold classified documents in Florida. It could not be determined who was involved with packing the boxes at Mar-a-Lago or why some White House documents were not sent to the archives, though people familiar with the episode said Trump oversaw the process himself and did so with great secrecy, declining to show some items even to his top aides. Some material recovered in the search is considered extraordinarily sensitive because it could reveal carefully guarded secrets about U.S. intelligence gathering methods. One of them said the information is among the most sensitive secrets we hold. Around that time, Trump attorneys Evan Corcoran and Christina Bobb together provided the Justice Department with a written assurance about Trump having returned classified materials. A person familiar with the matter said the person did not provide the specific wording of the letter, which was signed by Bobb. A person familiar with the matter said the document is of interest to the FBI, which is investigating the veracity of its claims. Joining us now is Washington Post national reporter Carol Leonnig, who is bylined on the story tonight. Carol, thank you so much for being here. It is breaking and it is explosive. I think the first thing that at least grabbed me in reading this article is just how deeply the former president appears to have been in selecting these documents. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, what's clear in both the interviews we've done with sources and also as revealed in a lot of new records and letters that are coming out is that the president was very involved, the former president was very involved in, at the last minute, hastily and chaotically packing up his documents that he thought were quote unquote his, and arranging for them to be taken to Mar-a-Lago, his private club and part-time residence. And that also importantly, Alex, despite the former president's claim that all he's done has been cooperative, what we found is that week after week, he was the person resisting providing records. He was the person, along with his lawyers, asking for delay in allowing the FBI, for example, to look over the classified records that they found, to their horror, to their shock, in a group of 15 boxes of records that they retrieved from Mar-a-Lago. And so the former president is very, very much at the center of this drama. And now his own advisors, legal and otherwise, are growing increasingly concerned and have been since June that this is a criminal investigation in which the former president is in legal jeopardy, ultimately of his own making. That if perhaps he had turned over the records willingly and forthrightly right away in January or in December or in the fall of 2021, all of these times that it was asked for, that it might not have morphed into a criminal investigation looking at the willful retention of some of the highest and most sensitive secrets our government holds.
Yeah, I think we should focus on that a little bit, because this isn't like a former president sitting at his kitchen table leafing through memorabilia that he mistakenly brought home, right? I mean, you specifically say in the story that he was going through these documents with, quote, great secrecy, declining to show some items even to top aides. And what are we talking about, Carol? I mean, some of the most sensitive secrets we hold. Can you talk more about that and just the amount of, not only the recognition of that among the people reporting on this story, but within Trump's circle, it sounds like nobody really wanted to touch this case with a 10-foot pole.
Oh, such a good point. And I promise we will circle back to that, Alex, about the 10-foot pole that a lot of people were avoiding taking hold of. So your first question about the sensitivity of this material. As described in the inventory, some of this material is top secret, secure, compartmented information. That means that people have to, as you described earlier so well, people who are in government have to have a absolute reason to know and access this information as part of their job. It has to be somebody who's incredibly trustworthy and has this very high security clearance. And usually secure compartmented information involves intelligence gathering methods. The records that were seized on August 8th, just as the FBI and the Department of Justice feared, were some of those holiest of holy kinds of records that, if shared indiscriminately or handled carelessly in a private restaurant, club, if ever disclosed, would cause immediate grave danger to national security, because it would reveal how the U.S. gathers the intelligence that it has. That includes, for example, which allies provide us special intelligence that they don't share with others. That includes, for example, covert programs that we have that gather intelligence. And if those details were revealed to a foreign adversary, our chances of protecting national security would be greatly diminished. Grave threats. Now, you asked that good question about people who during this period who worked for Donald Trump or were in the Trump orbit, trying to avoid being involved in this case. Starting in the fall of 2021, Donald Trump was resisting turning over records he believed were quote unquote mine, meaning his. And the archives knew that he had a lot of records, that things were missing, that they needed them. Eventually, Donald Trump's team turned over 15 boxes of records. The shocker for people who had previously worked in President Trump's White House counsel's office was that those records included highly classified materials. When they were notified, in particular, Deputy White House Counsel Patrick Philbin, when he was notified in April that the National Archives found that there was classified information in these documents, he was stunned. And he was being asked at that time to help Team Trump review the records, to go up to the National Archives and review what had been turned over and figure out what are in these boxes, which you would think they would have looked before. But Patrick Philbin and others backed away from this request by Team Trump. And pretty soon the FBI was knocking on their doors, asking the Deputy White House counsels, we need to interview you. You're now a subject witness. You may be a witness for us about what's going on in this withholding of what appear to be incredibly sensitive documents.
It is Wednesday, the 24th of August of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests? And all those weird ministers, too. They're all meddlesome. And, I just would like to have a little bit of that religion out of my life if I could have it. Aren't we afforded that right here in the great United States of America? We used to. All right, well, we just can't get rid of this guy, can we? Is he going to get locked up or at least put in a straitjacket? Because I think what is happening is that we are coddling a very disturbed, sick man. He actually believes he's still president of the United States. And as president of the United States, he has powers that no man has ever had before. only a crazy person. I know that might be disrespectful to crazy people, but look, we have to not coddle the crazy person, especially when they have their hands on the levers of blackmail. Oh my God. This guy never sat through a presidential daily briefing. He just poo-pooed him away. Said, yeah, sort of like GW, you did your job, and now get out of here. Boy, he was going through a lot of material, and I wonder by whose direction. Who was he getting it for? Because we're talking about the names of actual agents that he could be, selling off to the highest bidder. Or maybe he owes Vlad, and like anybody who's an earner, he has to earn. And he owes Vlad big time. We all talked about this before he ever took office. But everybody said, that's funny, isn't it? Yeah, that's not really true, is it? Well, I don't know. We used to call him a wannabe mobster. That was a nice way of getting out of it, huh? Because he was a mobster the whole time. You have to be, and, look, you might say that this is a somewhat bigoted statement, but oh well. You have to be somewhat of a mobster to flourish in New York real estate. Let us be clear. There was a reason why the group of former teachers who couldn't make enough money teaching, and why would you want to put up with all that grief? And that was back during Clinton. The reason we never did any projects in the city is because we discovered very quickly that if you wanted your project to move forward, you had to grease a few palms. And we didn't work that way. We didn't cut corners, and we didn't pay bribes. So who can afford the carrying costs of a mortgage, plus all of the material that you need to refurbish and rehab the structure? That can sit for a year or more. Every month you got to pay a bill on something, a project you can't start until you grease a few palms. Well, we found out that they didn't work that way in Berkeley or Oakland. Actually, it's we had a philosophy. We called ourselves Code Plus, meaning that whatever the code was, we did it better. Try to have a little bit of foresight about design and, renewables for the future. Even back then, we were thinking of it. But anyway, we did better where we didn't have to put up with all that criming. We didn't want to crime. And Donald Trump was right in there in New York real estate. I'm just saying. Grease a few palms. Don't pay your subcontractors. Stiff your workers. Man, that's the way to make it. That's a winner. Damn right. Oh, you don't pay your taxes? That means I'm smart. Really? Well, we still want to know why he was rifling through all of that top secret all those top secret documents, probably taking microfiche photographs of them, because I'm pretty sure that Vlad likes microfiche. He grew up on it. Okay. So Donnie's going to get a pass. Matt Gaetz is getting a pass. He gets to run for office, apparently, and no one is going to charge him with a crime while he's running for office. They just don't do that. Unless, I got to tell you, unless you're, the liberal persuasion. They seem to go after those electeds right when you're about ready to run. Okay, well, we'll see how that works out. Congratulations to Rebecca Jones for being the opponent of that Matt Gaetz, and we like her. The smear campaign on her even reached into my little platform and world, where I got hammered by, I don't know, it's like a cartel of them. They come out and they attacked Rebecca Jones in my timeline and took me to task in the midst of it. Not as bad as the Rittenhouse one from a couple of weeks ago. I saw that he was trending again, but I didn't get the deluge of trolls and bots descending upon my timeline and attacking me personally, and actually one of them, or troll or bot, making a fake account of me, impersonating me without my permission, and using images from my files, and it's a little creepy, which it also included, possible family and stuff, and that's just, you don't do that. And I say that mostly for whoever is making the threats. You don't do that to my family. Someone can get hurt. And I'm telling you. I'm warning you. Don't do it. Okay. Well, what a day, huh? More and more is coming out. It's not going to persuade his sycophants, and we know why. Because I think that anybody who watched The Apprentice was subjected to some sort of weird frequency, maybe visual, because I actually think it was through the eye, a particular kind of light or beam that went into the eye and programmed a bunch of people into believing that this guy, Donald Trump, was some sort of great businessman, and you could take what he said to the bank. Jeez. And everybody else who just heard about this show, because why would you want to watch a show with Donald Trump on it? My God. The preening, the ostentatious show of consumerism. It's just, just not what we liked, I mean, we'll watch a David Lynch series on TV if we're going to watch TV. Forcing us to watch TV, give me some David Lynch. So the idea of watching Donald Trump didn't occur to a lot of us, and I noticed that a lot of us who never watched The Apprentice don't have the same sort of, what shall I call it, cult-like behavior compared to those who were fans of the show. Okay. So I guess if you're going to have a fascist takeover of America, do what the fascists did. Yeah. Benito was no dummy. Benito was actually a very, very intelligent, smart man, and that's what made him dangerous. What also made him kind of like a buffoon was because he was a buffoon too. Let's talk about preening ostentatiousness. But anyway, Benito owned papers. He was an actual publisher and wrote in quite florid and imposing and persuasive style. So unlike Trump, who's just all bombast, I mean, he can communicate. But I got to tell you, it seems like he communicates pretty well to those people who had some sort of light beam going to their eye while they were watching The Apprentice. Jeez. Don't do it. The TV does activate the hypothalamus. You don't get restful sleep when the TV is on, even with the sound down and all that. Just that particular kind of light activates the hypothalamus, and you never really get into deep REM, which is the restful form of sleep that you need. Listen to the radio. It doesn't have the same impact. In fact, it actually gets you more into deep REM. Take it from one who knows, okay? I'm not Dr. Oz on this, okay? Rand Paul is another quack out there, too. God, they're everywhere. Dr. Oz, Rand Paul. Let's vote them out. What do you say? Okay, let's also mention what happens to be on the curated part of the show. So let's get into it. Yeah, new reporting shows the extent and sometimes even exclusivity of Trump's role in stealing sensitive documents from the White House. And I said stealing, not misappropriating. Misappropriating is just a nice way of calling it stealing. Then on the rest of the menu, responding to an increasing number of violent right-wing threats to its workers, which I got to tell you is reminiscent of the build-up to the Oklahoma bombing, Oklahoma City bombing. Just saying. The Internal Revenue Service announced that it was conducting a comprehensive safety review at its facilities. And I'm talking about, how bomb-ready they are, let alone are you going to let people come through the turnstile with guns. A federal grand jury convicted 2 men of plotting to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, which was a run-up to a race war that they hoped would happen, civil war. And an English teacher at a high school in Oklahoma was fired after she provided students with a QR code for free access to ebooks from the Brooklyn Library. She was getting kids a library card, and they fired her. Welcome to America. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where 2 top officials of Hungary's meteorological service were fired after an inaccurate rain forecast. And women around the world are dancing in solidarity with Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left across the page from that chat room link, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is a link to our Patreon site. And please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. If you could afford an espresso type coffee drink, how about that? If you could send those funds to us instead once a month, it really helps us pay our bills. And I got to tell you, the bills keep going up, and we got to keep paying them. And that way, we found that we are able to fly under the radar and continue this powerhouse of resistance against dark forces arrayed against not only democracy in the United States of America, but democracy around the world. And we won't let it happen, and we thank you for your generosity in allowing us to continue our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many years ago. All kidding aside, thank you for your generosity. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so by going to @NetrootsRadio. Tom takes care of that. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary. It will always be a diary. I know they want to make them stories. But anyway, that gets posted 10 minutes before showtime. And you can find the show notes and links diaries by going to my Twitter feed at Justice Putnam. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes. wherever podcasts can be found. And the deep archive of the Netroots Radio Library can be found at the Internet Archive at archive.org. Netroots Radio. Let us tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And this first offering is out of the Associated Press by Fatima Hussein. Responding to an increasing number of threats born of conspiracy theories that agents were going to aggressively target middle-income taxpayers, the IRS announced yesterday, Tuesday, that it was conducting a comprehensive review of safety at its facilities. The climate, health, and tax legislation signed into law by President Joe Biden last week included $80 billion in funding for tax collection efforts, although Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen specifically directed the agency to not focus its attention on taxpayers with middle-class incomes. Misinformation spread rapidly online that agents were going to crack down on taxpayers of all earnings levels. They come after the rich people, they're coming after you too. The baseless assertions also said the IRS would distribute firearms to employees authorized to use deadly force, prompting threats to the IRS employees. Now, agency leadership has launched an examination of agency safety. We are conducting a comprehensive review of existing safety and security measures, said Chuck Rettig, IRS Commissioner, about the agency's 600 office locations nationwide. This includes conducting risk assessments, he said, by monitoring perimeter security, designations of restricted areas, exterior lighting, security around entrances of facilities, and other measures. Maybe some of those bomb dampening concrete barrier things that they use. For me, this is personal. I'll continue to make every effort to dispel any lingering misperceptions about our work, Rettig said in a letter to employees, and I will continue to advocate for your safety in every venue where I have an audience. Rettig, whose term at the IRS ends in November, is tasked with developing a plan on how to spend the new infusion of funds included in the Inflation Reduction Act. Along with anonymous online forums, high-ranking Republican politicians have spread falsehoods about the IRS workforce and how the newly allocated funds would be spent. Senator Rick Scott sent a August 16 open letter to Americans calling on them not to take any new IRS positions, reinforcing false information about open roles at the agency and their access to firearms. The IRS is making it very clear, he said in the letter, that you not only need to be ready to audit and investigate your fellow hard-working Americans, your neighbors and friends, you need to be ready, and to use the IRS's words, willing to kill them. That is Rick Scott, who's vacationing in Italy, by the way, while he complains about Joe Biden going to the family retreat in New Hampshire. Tom Reardon, president of the National Treasury Employees Union, said members have been vocal about their fears and worries about their safety. IRS employees are certainly very hardworking and honest. They do the business of funding the government. They're saying they don't deserve to be treated as the enemy of the government, he said. He added that members who are of retirement age have expressed a greater desire to retire due to the increased attention on their jobs. More than half of the IRS's enforcement workforce of 80,000 is retirement eligible. Reardon and several workers have talked about being reminded of the 2010 Austin, Texas suicide attack, where Andrew Joseph Stack III deliberately crashed his single-engine plane into the Echelon office building, killing himself and IRS service manager Vernon Hunter. The rhetoric we're hearing now is dangerous, Reardon said. It's putting these patriotic Americans at risk. Holly Bailey and Perry Stein of the Washington Post bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A federal jury convicted 2 men of plotting to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer in 2020, a case that raised alarms about the possibility of politically motivated violence in the era of Trump and served as a precursor to the January 6th insurrection that took place months later. I should remind folks that the hostile takeover of state houses throughout that whole summer were coordinated as practice sessions for the January 6th insurrection. In one of the most highest-profile domestic terrorism cases in recent memory, prosecutors cast Barry Croft Jr. and Adam Fox as violent anti-government extremists who planned to capture Whitmer at her vacation home in northern Michigan, detonate a bridge to disrupt responding police officers, and in the process ignite a civil war ahead of the 2020 presidential election. They wanted to set off a second American Civil War and a second American Revolution, something they called the Boogaloo. Assistant U.S. Attorney Niels Kessler, one of the lead prosecutors, said during his closing argument, "The verdicts come against the politically charged background of a deeply divided America, where politicians, including Whitmer, say they continue to face threats from extremists." The jury in Grand Rapids, Michigan, deliberated for 8 hours over 2 days before convicting Croft and Fox on 2 charges of conspiracy, one related to the kidnapping scheme, and another to obtain and use a weapon of mass destruction. Croft was also convicted on another explosive charge. The men face up to life in prison. This final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is Out of Raw Story by Sky Palma. An English teacher at Norman High School in Oklahoma was fired after she provided students with a QR code for free access to books. Norman Public Schools, like other districts in the state, is making teachers review their classroom libraries and remove certain titles that violate district policy. The rule is a result of the passing of House Bill HB 1775, which, has been pointed out, says the Oklahoma State Board of Education will prohibit any discrimination on the basis of race or sex in the form of bias, stereotyping, scapegoating, classification or traits, morals, values, or characteristics that are based solely on race or sex. English teacher Summer Boismer said she was fired for simply sharing a QR code to students so they could access free ebooks from the Brooklyn Library. Bosomer said she shared the code with her students in response to unfounded calls from state leadership for widespread censorship. Teachers across the district have been told by administration to either remove or restrict student access to classroom library texts for fear of a potential accreditation downgrade associated with any perceived violations of HB 1775, Bosomer said. Just recently, the Oklahoma State Board of Education downgraded the accreditation of 2 Oklahoma public schools following alleged violations of HB 1775, it has been reported, by Fox 25, by the way. Mustang Public Schools and Tulsa Public Schools were both found in violation of the critical race theories ban, receiving the disciplinary action of accreditation with a warning, which is the third tier of the board's 5 accreditation tiers. Speaking to Fox 25, Bosomer said she places the primary responsibility for this chilling of free speech and free association at the feet of Ryan Walters, Governor Stitt, and their ilk at 23rd and Lincoln. Let us now go to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, The American Express Connection, or Gig Day Afternoon. Emily the Criminal is written and directed by John Patton Ford and stars and is co-produced by Aubrey Plaza, who plays Emily, a drowning person shackled to a low-pay, no-rights food delivery gig by past DUI and assault convictions, and thousands of dollars in student loan debt. A co-worker hooks her up with a credit card fraud side hustle, and we're off and running. First off, the acting is spot on. Plaza, Theo Rossi, everyone sinks these short scenes in naturalistic dialogue. Second, the storytelling is well done. Ford gives cinematographer Jeff Bierman a handheld camera to pummel us with a series of unstable tight shots and close-ups, delivering a chokingly claustrophobic film that makes us see and feel how Emily is trapped. Harrison Atkins' abrupt edits further the unsettling and aggressive feel of this world, and Liz Tunko's production design gives us a dirty and sweaty LA even in spaces that are moneyed and swank. The gestalt harkens to early 70s American New Wave, no surprise, since Dog Day Afternoon, The French Connection, those are some of Ford's favorite movies. Okay. Let's step back, which is something the film rarely allows you to do. It's problematic to have very rich, very beautiful people make movies, for the well-off, about characters who are poor and desperate, and I brace when the film places a foot in 2 moral camps. Though we see Emily pushed by a world crafted by unabashed, opportunistic exploitation, one of the few scenes of length suggests that there's something in Emily that takes to crime, an impression enhanced by how other the film makes her, a Jersey girl in LA, isolated by the close-ups, alone even in crowds. Though Plaza herself likes this criminal essence, it strikes me as lazy morality. Sure, the world is hard, but people do bad things because they're bad people. Though Emily the Criminal gives us much, its questions deserve more. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt and our submarine crashed on the seafloor. We were in total darkness.
That's Dr. Dejana Figueroa, a marine biologist and STEM teacher, talking about a deep sea dive she'll never forget.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean, and there I was, 2 miles below the surface. But as a scientist, you prepare for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fixed the sub and finished our experiments. The dive was just too important. Every dive gives us glimpses at things few people ever get to see. Glowing creatures, fiery undersea volcanoes. When we got back to the surface, I kissed the ground and called my mom, of course. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that dye for anything.
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to discover new things and make the world a better place. She can STEM, so can you. Check out She Can STEM for more stories and inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? What, did he balance on that big chair?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey, kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
When is a raid not a raid? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. On August 8th, there was what many are calling a raid at former President Trump's residence, Mar-a-Lago. The first dictionary definition of a raid is a hostile or predatory incursion. The next definition, a surprise attack by a small force. There is an additional definition, a sudden invasion by officers of the law. The constitutional right at issue here is the protection afforded by the Fourth Amendment, which says, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. What happened in Mar-a-Lago is that FBI agents conducted a search pursuant to a search warrant issued by a federal magistrate judge who determined, based on statements made under oath, that there was probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed and that there was evidence of that crime or crimes at Mar-a-Lago. So, some media and various individuals will continue to call what the FBI did at Mar-a-Lago on August 8th a raid. But in the lexicon of the law and the Constitution, what happened at Mar-a-Lago was a search and seizure. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. The year was 1877. That summer, during what came to be known as the Great Upheaval, police, the U.S. Army, and the National Guard brutally crushed a national railroad strike. The simmering anger of working people had many elected officials and industrialists on edge. One man saw the labor unrest as a business opportunity. And on this day in labor history, the treasurer of the Gatlin Gun Company wrote a letter to the president of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad with a proposal. He wrote, "We have the honor to suggest that you strengthen yourself now against such emergencies in the future by providing yourselves with Gatlin guns. 4 or 5 men only are required to operate it, and one Gatling with a full supply of ammunition can clear a street or track and keep it clear." The 6-barrel hand-cranked weapon could fire 200 bullets a minute. Upgrades to the gun soon had it cranking out an astonishing 600 bullets a minute. This ferocious new weapon set its sights on the cause of labor. In 1878, in Cleveland, Ohio, 25 prominent citizens formed the Cleveland Gatlin Gun Battery to deal with labor uprisings. Armed with 2 of the new guns, the militia drilled and held social events, but never fired the gun against workers. Militias from San Francisco to Connecticut, from Kansas to Pennsylvania, likewise armed themselves. Perhaps the place where the gun became most infamously used against labor was in the Colorado mining wars. In 1914, a Gatlin-type gun mounted on an armored car was used to shoot up a workers' tent city in Ludlow.
Pavlichenko, well known to fame, Russia's your country.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
All time to come, 300 Nazis fell by your gun. Fell by.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 58 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high a tad warmer than yesterday, about 98 to 100. Plentiful sunshine, and winds will be out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies overnight with lows in the low 60s, winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then sunny skies tomorrow with highs about the same, 98 to 100. Winds will be out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County have not been updated. They should be updated, or have been getting updated towards the end of the day, today. So we'll see what those totals are for tomorrow. Grass pollen is rated low right outside the window in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is good at 20 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is high at level 7. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.9 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 90%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 82 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 91 and sunny. Rome is 86 and fair. Kyiv is 88 and sunny. Kabul is 62 with rain. Hong Kong is 83 with rain, showers, and heavy wind. Tokyo is 75 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 50 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 54 degrees and cloudy. And New York, New York is 81 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Justin Spike of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The two top officials of Hungary's meteorological service were fired after an inaccurate rain forecast prompted the postponement of a fireworks display on the country's most important national holiday. The firings of the head and deputy head of the National Meteorological Service prompted accusations of political interference from Orban's nationalist government. The annual St. Stephen's Day fireworks show along the Danube in Budapest, billed as the largest display in Europe, was called off Saturday afternoon based on forecasts that said extreme weather was likely around 9 p.m. start time. By evening, the storms had not materialized in the capital, but the show, which typically draws more than 1 million spectators, already had been rescheduled for the next week due to safety concerns. The firings were announced in a brief statement by Minister of Technology and Industry, Laszlo Palkovics, a top cabinet member in the government of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. The fired weather service chief, Cornelia Redix, had served in her post since 2013, and her deputy, Gyula Horvath, since 2016. In a statement, the Meteorological Service demanded the reinstatement of its fired leaders. The agency described coming under political pressure concerning its assessments of weather models on the holiday, and that those applying the pressure ignored the scientifically accepted uncertainty inherent in meteorological forecasts.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Samantha Cherry of the Washington Post brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Women are busting out their moves on social media to show support for Finland's Prime Minister, Sanna Marin, and to remind the world that politicians are people too. Political opponents berated Marin, age 36, last week after videos surfaced of the Finnish leader partying with her friends at a private event. They called her decision to party during the country's economic crisis unprofessional and irresponsible. Some critics also suggested that Marin was abusing substances and demanded she take a drug test. To prove otherwise, she had agreed to a drug test which came back negative. But many women have rushed to the dance floor and posted videos on social media tagged with solidarity with Sanna to call out what they see as unfair sexist treatment of Marin. They argue that the criticism she's faced has been unjustifiably doled out because she's a young woman in a sphere dominated by older men. And they would be correct. That also brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte coère. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver.